And now let's bring in our contributor, Mike Leon, for some more insights on this. He's the Director of Policy and Strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation and the host of Can We Please Talk, the news commentary podcast. Good morning, Mike. Good to see you. So let's talk about the potential differences in policy. What do you think Kamala Harris, what her stance would be on some of the top issues? Will it diverge from President Biden?
Hey, Evelyn, good morning, first and foremost. That's going to be the key question because obviously Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, is coming to D.C. this week. He's hopeful to see the president. He's going to be speaking before Congress. So that would be first top of mind, right? Like, what is our policy? Do we have a two-state solution that Kamala Harris believes in the Middle East? Everybody knows that Joe Biden is probably one of Israel's biggest allies, and Bibi Netanyahu said so in a recent statement about him. So it'll be interesting to see the shift potentially that Vice President Harris would speak about with respect to Israel and the Middle East overall. And then obviously you have the conflict that's happening in Ukraine. Obviously a couple of weeks ago, President Biden having the Ukraine compact there with a bunch of other leaders of NATO and talking about the need to support Ukraine. I know Kamala Harris is on board with that as well. So I think those type of policy measures would stick going to President Harris. But there's other conflicts, obviously, with China's aggression in Taiwan, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But I don't expect a huge shift from Harris leaving Biden.
Got it. So, but do you think she needs to differentiate herself from the president? How can she jump out of President Joe Biden's shadow?
That's a really good question because, obviously all of the talking points on networks is that she hasn't done enough, right? If she gets blamed a lot for the crisis at the border, right? And everyone's always saying, where is Vice President Harris on this? Because remember, President Biden said he was going to put this on her plate. So I think she does need to come out. She's speaking later today. I know that there's going to be a conference that she's going to be doing. And I think her team is going to be speaking about some of these key differentiations between her and the president. And obviously, she's going to mention, she just did an event this past week in Michigan that I know a few folks were at as the RNC was happening, in Wisconsin. And I know she spoke to a crowd there. And this was before, obviously, the announcement, but she was talking about the policy measures that the administration has done over the last 3.5 years and what they want to tackle over the next 4 years in a Biden-Harris campaign. So I think she really does need to come out and stress what she would do about the cost of consumer goods rising year over year. What is her plan, her economic plan and vision? Because now it's all hers, right? What is her foreign policy stance with respect to Israel and the Middle East and Ukraine war because of all the money that's being spent? So we're going to want to hear how she differentiates from the president for sure. She truly needs to make that dent happen today because we're losing time because the Democratic National Convention is only in 4 weeks.
Right, a lot of questions still surrounding that. Are there some issues already that are clear where she might diverge from the president? Some say that perhaps health or, well, more specifically, actually abortion might be somewhere that she's louder.
Yeah, she's definitely been vocal about that. I think that's been in the last couple of her speeches. She's been talking about women's reproductive rights. If you recall back during the Senate confirmation hearing of Brett Kavanaugh, she was one of the key senators that was questioning him about Roe v. Wade and whether or not it was settled law. So, and she's done stuff in San Francisco as the Attorney General around women's reproductive rights. So this is a key issue to her. I know that speaking to people close to her, I know that is something that she has been echoing message-wise. It was one of the attack ads that they put on J.D. Vance when he was announced as the vice presidential pick for former President Trump. So I know she's going to be vocal at that. And obviously all of the different ballot measures that happened in 22, the different referendums, that happened in 23, all of that is going to be talking points that she's going to lay out about her vision for women's reproductive rights and women's health.
Got it. And so to your point earlier about pinning blame. So there are obviously other candidates that are eyeing the presidential bid. What do you think Kamala Harris still really has to do to secure her spot as a nominee? Because some analysts have said that it would be harder, for instance, for Republicans to blame all these issues like inflation, border crisis, and everything else on, let's say, a governor, a senator, but they can pin this responsibility on a vice president.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, remember, you're running against, and I know the Trump team has been vocal about this of like, well, now we have to pivot. Well, no, you were already campaigning negatively against Biden-Harris administration, right? So you can still carry over what you were going to do message-wise and all the content that's going to be pumped out for these political campaigns. It just has to shift the tone to say that Vice President Harris was absent on some of these things, right? She wasn't. She was part of the decision-making process, but she's been absent on some of the things, like I mentioned before, about immigration and people blaming her for that situation. And then to your counterpoint there, Evelyn, right? For Vice President Harris, she needs to champion things that she has done in the Senate. And then to a lesser extent, champion things at a vice presidential level that she's done that puts her at the number 2 and qualified for that job. But overall, I don't know that any other Democrats are going to really enter this race. We saw Gavin Newsom, who everybody kind of pointed to over the last 5, 6 years as potentially the next Democratic figurehead. And he already endorsed Kamala Harris, releasing a statement last night, having worked with her in California for a long time. So he's one person crossed off the list. I know Joe Manchin said that he was going to register as a Democrat back again. And now I'm laughing, as you can hear, that he said he was going to do that and potentially run. But I think, obviously we're all going to see what happens with the delegates on the first vote in August 19th at the convention. But I don't expect anybody else to kind of jump into the fray here. And I think Democratic support, as Kamala Harris has been making the calls and her team has been making the calls, I think they're all going to rally around her so that first vote between the delegates goes smoothly at the convention and she accepts the nomination.
Yeah, lots of things happening. Thank you so much for providing your insights on this. Good speaking to you, Mike Leon. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Evelyn.